I was away last week.
All right, then. Yes, we're here. Look at that lovely transition into my screen. Today we're doing a political stream. We're doing British and world politics, looking at reform and the Prime Minister's questions. The whole point of today is to get an understanding of reform, what's the message they preach, what's their manifesto like. Do they have a good shot of winning the next general election, or taking a few seats in the local elections? We're going to build up a little profile. So I got my I've got a nice page out here, as you see in front of me, the Photoshop page. I'm going to start putting down some information of reform, taking some notes, watching the local elections here on Good Morning Britain. This is subscribe to Good Morning Britain. I've only subscribed to Piers Morgan, just to bear in mind. Hang on, is this music starting up again? Enough of that. Thank you very much. That's the song music from RimWorld. That's what I listen to. Don't waste my evenings. Right then, so I wrote myself some notes. So we're going to take a dive into reform, build up a portfolio, a profile of reform, find out what they're up to, what we think of Nigel Farage, and find out what their hopes are in the next general election and all events leading up to it. So this is a video from Good Morning Britain. I think it's a good place to start. We're looking at the polls predicting a surge for similar parties in the upcoming local elections. Kevin and Andrew discuss what this will mean for the Labour and Conservative parties. So let's dive in. It's only 20 minutes long, but in the meanwhile, I'm going to be floundering around in the background, which you might be able to see here, and putting together a reform page to get an idea of what they're about. Let's
Sweet. But of course, you've all been discussing the passing of the Pope.
Yeah. And to be honest, Nigel Farage must be buzzing at the moment for how much success he's had.
The funeral at the weekend. I mean, such powerful kind of global pictures.
And Andrew, you had
Nigel
said
Farage
last week
even
that
religious?
You were tempted to go.
I didn't in the end.
No. So what impact did that ceremony have on you? The final
I think Nigel Farage needs to get his
journey of the Pope.
Out of Donald Trump's ass.
I thought it was done very beautifully.
Although it could be handy
because there was
moving forward if
you
he's
could hear
still
the
around.
sermon, which is very inspiring.
And
I think they just it was a great send-off for a much admired Pope, actually, and it gave me hope that they'll get it right when they choose the next one. But it's a bit like our royal family, who do pomp and pageantry so well. Nobody does a funeral quite like the Roman Catholic Church, but you've got to be there for the long haul, because it was not short.
Bladder control would have been quite important. You know, of all the big public funerals in recent years, I think the most moving was Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh's. When you saw the Queen,
the Queen's was more moving
on her own, and he decided he wanted the hearse to be a Land Rover and so on. I found that the most moving.
But of course, when you have a royal funeral, we already know who is going to be the heir. So we knew King Charles was becoming the king, whereas in the case of the Catholic Church, we now go into a process of choosing the cardinals choose it. And you know, I was saying that at the weekend, a huge rise in the number of people watching Conclave. To find out how this process works. It's called the story written by Robert Harris of the choosing of the Pope. But it's a big decision for the Catholic Church, isn't it? Because Pope Francis was
James Bond,
a great campaigner for social justice, for refugees, for challenging the world on behalf of the disadvantaged. Will the Catholic Church choose another pope in that?
I suspect.
Am I not allowed to open it?
Actually,
here we go.
I think they may go back a bit more to what they've been used to. You never know. One of the favourites is the Patriarch of Jerusalem, who speaks Arabic, Hebrew, English. Very clever man. Quite modern in his approach. I think the problem he'd have, he's 63, and cardinals tend not to vote for a younger cardinal because, I might be Pope one day. So
they don't want to give him too much time.
I'm afraid that's brutally true.
Wow.
It's politics. Politics will be going on in this decision.
That's
quite interesting. They deliberately vote for old popes, so they know they're going to pass earlier, so they get to go.
Who, in fact,
not really putting the faith ahead of their own lining their own pockets, right? Britain has so much potential. This is from the Reform Manifesto. Let's find out what Nigel Farage has in store for us. Britain has so much potential. Our country is full of talent and energy. Brexit is the opportunity of a lifetime. Of course, Nigel Farage was the spearhead for the Brexit campaign. The challenges we face are vast. Both Labour and the Tory governments have broken promise after promise. They have destroyed trust in our democracy and betrayed the British people. Our country is worse off both financially and culturally. The economy is being wrecked by record high taxes. Don't know what Nigel Farage is going to do about taxes. The economy is being wrecked by record high taxes, record high national debt, wasteful government spending, and nanny state regulations, which I like that statement. That sounds pretty clear. Couldn't agree more. Record mass immigration has damaged our country. Both small boat crisis threatens our security. Multiculturalism has imported separate communities that reject our way of life. Diverse woke ideology has captured our public institutions and quangos, I guess. Transgender indoctrination is causing irreversible harm to our children. The unprecedented population explosion has pushed Britain to the breaking point, and there's a housing crisis, a benefits crisis, record crime, record NHS waiting lists, wages are stagnating, net zero has sent energy costs soaring, and it is making us poorer and colder, damaging Britain industry and forcing drivers off the road. The Tories have broken Britain, Labour will bankrupt Britain. A vote for either is a vote for more incompetence, dishonesty and defeat. The two-party system has failed. We are ruled by an out-of-touch political class and have turned their backs on our country. But there is an alternative. The British people now have in common sense choice in Reform UK. Our contract with you is a serious plan to reshape the way our country is run. The government must work for the British people, not against them. Only reform will stand up for British culture, identity and values. We will freeze immigration and stop the boats, restore law and order, repair our broken public services, cut taxes to make work pay, end government waste and deliver a fully funded plan with zero NHS waiting lists. We will unlock Britain's vast energy treasure of oil and gas to slash energy bills, beat the cost of living crisis, and unleash real economic growth. Once and for all, we will take back control over our borders and our money and our laws. Only Reform UK will secure Britain's future as a free, proud and independent sovereign nation. Well then, what do you guys think of that? I'm going to take a few notes out of that and continue listening to Kevin and Andrew.
Abdicated was, I think, 78. So older popes are not uncommon.
Young cardinals vote for old popes. But you can go on Paddy Power and see all the odds.
They are
I was looking myself, actually, thinking, should I have a little couple of quid?
Flutter.
Well, you might as well, you know, but it's very hard with a
feel very religious.
Nothing sacred anymore.
No.
There's also a really interesting parallel between what the Catholic Church is about to go through and what political parties go through. The Conservatives went through this in the autumn, and we're talking to the new Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, later in the show, because the people deciding are the MPs and the members.
You know, I'm going to play ChatGPT. That's always pretty good.
Or they could choose somebody who they think will reflect the views of their voters, or in the case of the Catholic Church, their congregation, or they could choose the person who they think will be the most likely to appeal to people who weren't previously Conservative voters to reach out.
Yeah.
And that is a set of choices that every political party has when they choose a leader, and the Catholic Church has as well. Do you choose the person who's most like us, or do you choose the person who's most likely to win new people to your cause?
They should choose the candidate who's going to be the Pope, who's going to most closely reflect the work that Jesus would have wanted done on this planet to help the poor.
At that point, my parallel with politics rather falls apart.
It does. But there will be popes there, cardinals, who want their version of Catholicism reflected in the candidate they choose.
There are factions.
There
are different views, views of purpose, of values.
And we saw lots of one-to-one meetings with politicians at the Pope's funeral. We saw, for instance, the President of the United States locked in conversation with Zelensky from Ukraine. You'll be seeing lots of cabals of cardinals locked in conversation as the horse trading begins. It's beginning in earnest now.
So let's, Ed was then alluding to Kemi Badenoch and her election as leader of the opposition.
What do we think of Kemi Badenoch?
You interviewed her last week, Andrew. And then your colleague, Sarah Vine, also interviewed her. She's now going to be doing an interview live on this programme. This is a leader who has been criticised for not being out there enough, not subjecting herself to scrutiny. They're a big test this week because it's the local elections. In your view, how is Kemi Badenoch doing as leader of the Conservatives in the face of the surge of reform?
Well, it's, as Ed would tell you, probably the most difficult job in politics is to be leader of the opposition, particularly when you've only got 120 other MPs with you and the government benches are filled with more than 400.
Especially when you've just lost an election after being in power for a long
14 years. So the problem she's got is nobody's listening to the Tory party. Nobody cares about the Tory party. And a lot of people are still very angry with the Tory party because they think they didn't deliver, they let us down on various things. People like me who are a natural Tory think, what were they doing in the last few years? So all that, she's got to try.
I mean, I kind of like Kemi Badenoch. I think she's got a lot of potential. She's definitely needs to have a harsher, a kind of a more stricter tone. I mean, she's quite young in the face, isn't she? So it kind of takes a bit of the thread out of her. Maybe she could be another Margaret Thatcher, who knows?
And fix.
Yeah, Kevin, it's not just Kemi Badenoch and the Tories who face this challenge from reform, is it? Because even though the Labour Party have this massive majority in government and there's not going to be a general election for years, presumably they also face a massive threat in the local elections from reform.
Oh, yeah.
And the mayoral elections as well.
No, they do. And Labour also faces a threat on the left, being outflanked by the Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey, and the Greens as well. But no, reform's on a roll at the moment, and we'll see how fast that bandwagon is, whether they take the Runcorn and Helsby by-election, whether they win the Greater Lincolnshire mayoralty and the Hull and East Yorkshire mayoralty. They're the three big tests for them. But they'll win. They're tipped to win hundreds of seats. But that split on the right in British politics, because Reform is a right-wing party, quite hard right, and the Conservatives are on the right. That split is what is the key to Keir Starmer's getting his majority, because he only got 34% of the vote.
I wonder how far on the right Reform are. Reform Party, formerly the Brexit Party, are generally positioned on the right to far right of UK political spectrum. They are represented as a populist alternative to the Conservatives and Labour. Here's a clip to picture why. Oh, this is quite good. This is good. A good ChatGPT, my word. This feels like cheating. Said this wasn't around when
his vote, Labour share the vote, and he went up 2%. On the previous general election in 2019, Labour went up from 32 to 34%, but the Tories came down from 44 to 24. And that's Badenoch's got this split on the right, and somehow she's got to sort that, but she's ruling out any pacts. And she can't entirely distance herself from the last government, which ended in disaster, because she was a senior minister as business secretary.
Is this why, in the Daily Telegraph this morning, Andrew, we're getting this line from their political editor? Sir Keir Starmer is going to tighten restrictions on
That's what Keir Starmer is going to do, right? Keir Starmer is going to be moving further and further to the right to try and get some of the disenfranchised Conservative voters, but also trying to take the sting out of the Reform UK. You watch this change shift happen in the next few months.
After this week's local elections.
Of course, he is. Could have tightened them before, of course, but hasn't. I mean,
there was business secretary.
Is this why, in the Daily Telegraph this morning, Andrew, we're getting this line from their political editor? Sir Keir Starmer is going to tighten restrictions on immigration.
Is he?
After this week's
local elections.
Of course, he is. Could have tightened them before, of course.
Yeah, he could have tightened it a long time ago. He has no intentions.
The by-election is probably the biggest test for them. This has been caused by the resignation of Mike Amesbury, who lamped a constituent who stood down.
With a majority of close to 15,000. And for Labour to lose a 15,000 majority that quickly after an election.
And the significant thing is the Prime Minister has not been campaigning in that constituency, which suggests to me he knows it's doomed. That would be a major loss for them. It would go to reform. The Tories haven't got a prayer. So then he'll know that Nigel Farage's tanks are firmly parked on Labour's lawns. And remember, when he got into Parliament as an MP with four other MPs, Farage says, we're coming after Labour.
But Prime Ministers don't usually campaign in by-election seats. They do sometimes, but they don't usually. But I think he just recognises at this stage of the political cycle, and maybe permanent, he's not particularly popular. So I think him going off to Runcorn would probably not help the local candidate who will be campaigning, I'm the voice for Runcorn and Helsby, it's all about us. Farage, with his tribe, is popular. He's not popular with the country as a whole. We can get carried away on this, but with his tribe...
What with Nigel Farage is he is a very charismatic person, especially after pushing Britain through Brexit. But does he have the flair and the charisma to continue this surge of popularity, or is it just going to stop short? Do you reckon he'll just constantly get stuck at X amount of votes and X amount of seats every year? Or do you think it's time to replace Nigel and have someone with a fresher face and maybe not call the party Reform? Because that, I personally think the word reform means a huge overhaul rather than snipping away at the shrubs, you know? No one likes a big change in society.
He is popular, which is why I think he's been, well, it's 3 times he's been, but it is a big test of a government. Governments normally go backwards early on when they're in power because they make decisions, some of which are unpopular.
We'll put the candidates for that particular election up on our website, so because of course free and fair and all down to the voters.
There's not been a sort of a big Labour local election campaign, it seems to me. I mean, it's not just Keir Starmer not going to the by-election. I think they are...
That's a good point. What is Labour's message at the moment? If you looked at Labour Party right now and said, oh, Keir Starmer is really focusing his energy on this, or these 2 things, even 3 things, what do you think those are without even looking them up? What do you think Keir Starmer's even up to? I've not seen Prime Minister's questions yet, but I just want to go, like most people haven't seen Prime Minister's questions, but it'd be good to know an idea. So, does Keir Starmer even have the spirit to even deliver a message of what he wants to do right now and make it believable? I don't think so.
I know, if you think
trying to kind of, almost ignore them happening.
Government secretary, but where is she in this? You've hardly seen her and you've hardly heard her. And in fact, we were reading in Michael Ashcott's book at the weekend, she's been too busy threatening to resign.
But these local elections are only in parts of England. They're not in Wales, Scotland, they're not in...
But they happen at the time
in a lot of the big cities.
But the last time they happened was when Boris Johnson was doing very well.
And it was just...
So this ought to be a local elections where Labour sort of bounces back. But everybody's expecting Labour as well as the Conservatives to lose seats.
Yeah, and...
Let's look at the local elections predictions. Sky News. We can try Sky News. I wrote one down the other day. I want to see a picture of a map. Don't give me this writing business. Give me a map, baby. No, that's the same one. I'm a simpleton. I need pictures. I want the weather forecast of local elections. That's a map. Yes, there we go. Look at that. Simpleton. Right. So here are the council elections. I've got way too much going on at the moment. Ew, over here. Sippable sip. Good dog.
And it's unfortunate for Badenoch that they were good results for the Tories last time because it means they've got more seats to lose.
Yeah, they were exceptionally good results, actually.
Can I ask you about... I mean, she did an interview in the...
Okay, so to bear in mind, the local elections will be held on the 1st of May, which would be tomorrow. 1,641 councillors will be elected in 23 councils. Now, this isn't across the UK. This is just a few places here and there. I'll go down and explain. 14 county councils, 8 unitary authorities. I don't know what that is. What's a unitary authority? Oh. Did I just crash?
The Mail on Sunday.
Just bear in mind, I think Twitch has gone down. Just give me 2 seconds. Right, we're back on. We're live. Just want to make sure that's working again. Testing 1 2 1 2. Testing 1 2. Let me know if I'm still audible. Right, we're back up that little hiccup. I think OBS just crashed, but we're back in business. Where was I? We were just going through.
Asked about the reform threat.
We're going through
Nigel
reform,
Farage, which is kind of
looking at their current direction. Going to look into Nigel Farage to see what kind of character he is, if he has the what it takes to offer a change on the political stage on the UK, gather more support. Says, and just keep some basic logs and notes of what's actually going on. This is only my third ever stream for politics. I plan to do this as often as I can from about 6:20 onwards British time. And if you've got a moment, I've started a YouTube channel called Clown Politics, because I do politics but with a humorous undertone. I don't want to take it too seriously, so I understand politics can be incredibly emotionally loaded, so I kind of want to take the steam off. I make it not as serious, but do follow me over here. Looks like that. It's called Clown Politics UK. It'd be great if you guys left a like on there, and we'll continue on. Let's continue on with what's going on with local elections on Good Morning
have
Britain.
to be the better product. But of course, Coca-Cola and Pepsi, they are very similar drinks competing in the same territory for the same market. I mean, if you were a Conservative who lost your seat to the Liberal Democrats at the last election, or you lost your seat to Labour, there were home county seats where people voted Labour rather than Conservatives. I mean, would you want the strategy to be, well, you know, Coke and Pepsi were all pretty similar?
The biggest threat to the Tories is from reform, and that's the key. And that's so she's somehow got to try and square a circle where she takes on reform, can out-reform reform, but at the same time doesn't alienate even more voters who've picked the Liberal Democrats rather than the Tories in places like Cheltenham and Bath and some of the Surrey seats. I mean, it's a very difficult.
But no,
she's pulled in both two different directions, but she's choosing
back in business. Right, so we're talking about the local election.
She's choosing to fight reform on the
and she's also said, although she's not going to do a deal with reform, that's because Nigel Farage doesn't need a deal with reform at the moment. He's ahead. Locally, it's already happening. It's happening already.
The Tories,
where reform.
So it's taking place, right? So our local elections, these are local elections not across the entire of the UK, but just main areas. We've got Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, Greater Lincoln, Hull and East Yorkshire. These are all the places where all the friendly people live in the UK, if you don't know. North Tyneside. I think there's a few others as well. I think there's about 20 overall, or 23 councils. I think there'd be multiple in some larger areas. But what's this one? 14 county councils, like Northampton would be a county council, wouldn't it? Compared up to one Labour. Okay, 50 of these councils are currently controlled by the Conservative Party, compared to just one Labour, while 7 councils have no overall control. Of these, 7 are run by Conservative minor administrations, 2 Liberal Democrats and 1 independent. So this will be a really good indicator to see how well reform are being received to other parts of the world that aren't other parts of the UK, that aren't London. Continue on, lads. Continue on.
They can't win. They're stepping back, and vice versa.
If the Tories are Coke at the moment, it's a cheap supermarket brand that's not very popular. I mean, I was laughing when I read that yesterday. I thought you've got this completely wrong. Or when Coca-Cola, it reformulated and they changed the brand. If you remember, it was a big disaster, and then it had to go back to where they were. But she's got this terrible problem, as you say, on the right. And if she goes after Reform and Nigel Farage, she's going to risk losing those softer Conservatives who then will go the Lib Dems.
Right. What sort of an issue does the Labour government have with unions?
While this is playing, I like to keep busy. I like doing things. I'm making like playing cards or trump cards for different political candidates. It would be a good go-to to see how we feel about them for statistics.
They struck a deal, didn't they, over NHS pay for some workers, which was seen, you know, as one of the things that they trumpeted as one of their first successes to call off strikes. Now they face strikes again. Is this likely to happen, do you think, Kevin?
They were the pay review body reports they inherited from the Conservatives. They've been gathering dust and they implemented them. And I think it was 4.5%, 5% around the time. If you set up an independent...
Train drivers got 15% over 3 years.
Over 3 years, which is below inflation, because inflation was more than 11.1% in one of those years. And the train dispute was really about terms and conditions and how you work. But they're stuck, because if you have an independent system, you say it's an independent system, both sides give all their evidence, and then the experts decide what you're worth. They do issues like recruitment, retention, motivating, and they come up with a figure. It is very hard for a government to go back on those figures. Average wages at the moment are nearly at 5.9 in the private sector.
The truth is, Kevin, I mean...
So they're below...
if the government was planning on 2.8%...
increases.
If the government was planning on 2.8%, they were never going to get...
That's what I want to make. I want to make little trading cards like this, but with political leaders on the front.
3, 4,
Let's see if we can do it.
These seem to me to be very reasonable recommendations for the independent
not
pay review.
ones that the government has budgeted for.
Well, I know, but I think they budgeted very
and
tight.
inflation is going to go up this summer. It's going to go higher, but because of energy costs and other factors.
Tariffs from Donald Trump.
But if you...
So we've already seen the National Education Union, the biggest teachers' union, is already limbering up potentially for strike action, which would be a disaster for a Labour government.
The issue is not going to be strikes. The issue is going to be that individual departments are told you've got to pay 4%, but we're only giving you 2.8%, and that is a bigger squeeze on the services.
If a school is given 2.8% to pay, and then it's told you're going to have to pay close on 4%, well, where's the other 1% or so going to come from? It's going to come from existing budgets. So is there going to be fewer books? Are you going to have fewer staff? Are you going to have to cut back on maintenance? Are you not going to be buying new equipment? And same across the NHS. But the teachers and the NHS staff are worth those increases when you look at what's happening. They're below what's happening in average wages, and inflation is going to go 3.2%, I think, is the forecast of averaging next year. So you're not going to get a big increase in your standard of living. You're really basic. You're going to be treading water.
Yeah, and if these pay rises are not honoured, the issue is, do NHS staff go on strike? Do teachers go on strike? We know that when NHS staff go on strike, waiting lists go up.
Yeah, I've covered the world of pay negotiations for decades, and you get more threats of strikes than you ever get strikes. But there were strikes towards the end of the Conservative period, and it was in response, really.
You don't want to be the political candidate which has strikes looming above you if you get into power.
People's standards of living were going backwards, so of course they wanted to stand up for themselves and try and improve their position.
Politically,
they are a threat.
Catastrophic for a Labour government to have strikes in the NHS.
Yes, well, we've had those strikes when they had the 4-day work week. The garbage bags started piling up.
Politically difficult for a Labour government.
People in the public sector obviously rely heavily on the Labour Party to make sure they're well looked after. So any sort of looming that there's going to be cutbacks in any sector under the Labour, it's so fractious. They're going to be on the cusp of strikes being threatened. Even moving forward this year, because we always had bin strikes in Birmingham, and that's going to spread. And then it'll be up to the junior doctors and nurses to start their onslaught against fair pay.
Reject these pay review bodies.
No,
they'll pay them.
But if you're
have to find money, the chance have to find the money somewhere else, which means more borrowing or higher taxes.
But if you're a union negotiator for these groups of workers, you will know you've got some punch. But if you've bought into the peer review system and you expect the government to honour those awards, then aren't you really in a position that you should then accept them because you've bought into the system?
So, Kevin,
if you're not in the system, it's different.
So
but if you're in the system,
where will the money come from then in order to pay this increase to those workers? Because there's no doubt they deserve them.
Yeah.
And the government will probably agree to that. But they've already made a cut, obviously, to pensioners, the winter fuel allowance. They've made a cut to those with disabilities and benefits. Are they going to increase the amount they borrow? Is that what Rachel Reeves will do? Or is she going to contemplate another tax rise?
I think what she'll do is she'll sweat the budgets in those departments. And
so just cuts.
You'll squeeze the budget, and so something else will have to give. Maybe
something else will have to go.
Get a new roof. Maybe hospital equipment will be slower. I just can't see her increasing.
We'll stop giving money in aid abroad.
Departmental budgets, either borrowing, as you say, or.
But the Labour government is also behind better public services and investing in public services. So if people at the next election believe that their public services have suffered under a Labour government, that comes back to bite them. And in fact, in local elections as well.
Yeah, absolutely right.
But maybe you slow the rate of improvement.
Well, she will think.
Which is what. But you look at the NHS; it's getting better.
She slow the rate of the improvement.
6 successive months.
I mean,
it's
might be the only way.
High.
They could save £22 billion by abandoning this nonsense carbon capture scheme, an untried, untested technology. Get rid of it. £22 billion. That should be spent on our schools and on our hospitals.
Right.
The Chancellor will think the way she can get out of this, it's very hard this year, is to get the economy to grow more.
Oh, that's going to go well.
And if you look at the two things she was saying...
When you put taxes,
she was saying on Friday,
increased by taxes.
She was out in Washington, she said, our trade with the European Union is much more important than our trade with America. What does that suggest about their attitudes to Europe? She said that she wants a new youth workers scheme for young people to come and work here. The Treasury will be thinking more people coming into our country means more people working, means more growth in the economy, more tax revenue, rather in contradiction to the front page of the Daily Telegraph.
It's my understanding people only really contribute back to the system and outpay themselves when they're on about 40 grand or more. And that's usually when they hit about their 40s or 30s to 40s. That's when you're a net benefit financially and a tax benefit to the country. Everything else, and throughout your life working, you will be a debt until that point.
The graph that Susanna was reading out a moment ago. I mean, there will be an argument in the government between those people saying control migration and those people saying actually helps you with growth and taxes.
Well, they could also, or they could perhaps get people who are on benefits here to get to work. We've got, what, 10.5 million people still not working? Why do we need a great influx of young people from Europe to do these jobs?
But that's 10.5 million.
800,000 between the ages of 18 and 25, 880,000, not active economically in training. Get them their backsides and into work.
That 10.5 million figure you use includes people who are at home looking after their kids, includes students, includes people who retired early.
People so to do the jobs. We don't need to start free movement of people all over again.
You're just trying to create the impression.
Free movement of people by the back door.
You're trying to create the impression again. Britain is a nation of malingerers.
There are a lot of malingerers, yeah.
Britain is a nation of grafters.
There's a lot of malingerers.
Malingerers. There are a lot of malingerers. That's a good word, malingerers. Right, so seems to be positive words coming out the reform camp anyway. I mean, there's great points made just at them. Getting people back to work. Yeah, I mean, I think overall, stop having such a... Well, anyway, I'll get on to that in a second.
Nigel Farage's Reform UK party has widened its lead in the polls ahead of the local elections on Thursday. One new poll this week puts the party out in front of Labour and the Conservatives.
Labour!
The general election for MPs, potentially a breakthrough moment.
The party is contesting most of the council seats up for grabs in... It's tomorrow's poll.
Tomorrow's poll.
That's right, the first.
Along with the tightly fought by-election in Runcorn and Helsby, which was won by Labour last year. Joining us now is the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice. Very good morning to you.
Very good morning to you. Yes,
Richard
we're the
Tice.
biggest party in terms of number of candidates.
But you
Over
are
1,600.
Yes, you
Remarkable.
are. But you are tiny in terms of what you do in local councils currently.
Well, at the moment, but this is the big opportunity for us, and that's why we're saying to people, if you want change, if you're sick and tired of the two unit parties failing Britain, breaking your councils, breaking the country, you've got to vote for change, and that's the big difference.
Okay, that's
interesting.
interesting.
That's the message we're hearing on the doorstep.
Because so far, you really represent a sort of protest party in local government, don't you? You're saying if you're sick of the two main parties, then vote for us.
And isn't it exciting that people have got a genuine different choice? And that's what we're hearing on the doors. And we're getting a fantastic response. So and that's why we're leading in the polls.
Okay, so if you're not just a protest
party
and you're
reform, you can totally tell.
Don't vote for them, vote for us. What can you point to in local government that you have achieved?
What we point to is the failure of the existing two parties.
No, sorry, that wasn't my question. My question, because anyone can point out failures of other parties.
That's a good point.
What have you achieved in local government?
What we're doing is saying to people, look, your councils are broken, we will fix it, we will come in, we will save money, we will audit all of the expenditure, find out where the money's going, the well-procured contract, but the many badly procured contracts, wasting hundreds of thousands of pounds on ergonomic chairs.
Go on, Dickie, you've got this.
You've currently got 128 councillors. What have they achieved? This is what you're promising, but what have you achieved in local government so far?
What we are achieving is giving people the opportunity to say, we're done with the two main parties, someone else has got to come in,
That's how you avoid a question.
save some money, audit the finances, and then sort things out, because we can't keep spending more than we're earning.
That's a politician's answer. What have you done in your local candidates?
Councils are going bust up and down the country. Labour councils,
You haven't really done anything. I don't think you have enough.
This can't go on. We need some honesty about the state of council finances.
Not enough interesting things to actually admit.
I think what we're trying to get at here is what the difference is, because we're asking you about what you've done, and you are saying that the others have failed, and that's kind of what protest parties do. That's what kind of oppositions do. That's what outsiders do. That's fair enough. But I mean, at the weekend, Kemi Badenoch said something I think was really interesting. You, I think, have always been a politician who basically says that the Tories have kind of lost their way and we will be a better version of the Conservative Party. She said, you know, Coke versus Pepsi, very similar. And that's the real choice.
Don't say that word too loudly. You get Tommy Robinson down.
Basically a better version of the Conservative Party, Coke versus Pepsi?
They had their chance. They made a load of promises to the country.
I know, but
and at every level they blew it. No, we're different in terms of our immigration policy. We're different in terms of our net zero policy, where we've got newfound fans like Sir Tony Blair agreeing with Reform UK, listening and learning to what we're saying about net stupid
anything
zero.
from Tony Blair. It's probably the arbiter of this chaos.
Blair would, I'm sure, point out he does not agree with Reform UK.
We disagree with the Tories
policies.
on things, for example, on the nationalisation of British Steel, so that we protect that strategic national asset. These are key fundamental differences.
Really interesting to me, what you just said there, because I thought of you as being a better Conservative than the Conservatives. Not a Trumpian, a bit like Nigel Farage, but a better Conservative than the Conservatives. But nationalising a British industry.
Well, sometimes you've got to nationalise things. Like, although I'm against nationalising overall, but it's like with the rail, like for example, something that's an absolute necessity for your country, and it's being mismanaged. Like things like rail, things like the buses, things like that. If they're under strict pressure and underperforming, then sometimes the government should sweep in and really take control. Even if it is a temporary solution, but even a long solution. Imagine having the rail under the government. What do you guys think? Do you reckon that would work long term?
What Labour did in the 1950s and the 1970s. I know Nigel Farage is a sort of populist, big state, Boris Johnson style guy.
We've been calling for British Steel to be properly invested in for 6 years. I said to the Tories, don't sell it to the Chinese. They negligently ignored our advice, sold it to the Chinese, and we are where we are.
Nationalisation with reform.
Thanks to Nigel and I, we've saved British Steel, and we need to now invest in it.
How much is that going to cost?
And those are the opportunity.
How much will it cost?
It's cheap at the price compared to.
But how much? What is your costing of the cost of nationalisation?
I've got an expert advising me. We're producing.
And what's he told you on the cost?
Well, I tell you what, it will be a lot more
You wouldn't come on our
cost-effective.
programme with uncosted policies the day before an election. That would be totally irresponsible. That's what the other parties...
what a scoundrel.
My dear Ed.
What is your... No, don't patronise me. Answer the question. What is your costed proposal to nationalise British Steel?
It will be great value because we will protect and create a great
Do you not know the cost?
asset. We are working on a plan.
Do you not know the cost of a policy? You can't run an election on a policy and not know the cost and say you're different from the other guys. That's what bad politics did.
Patience is a virtue.
What is the
and we will come out with a plan.
What is the cost?
We will come out with a strategic plan.
So you don't know the cost of
Actually,
nationalising British Steel?
I do have a good idea about it, and we're working on a plan. But here's the point.
Yeah, but tell our viewers. They want to hear. They want to vote for you tomorrow.
No, what they want to hear. They want to hear someone who's consistent, who's always said, don't sell British Steel to the Chinese. Invest
Look at the absolute thunder, and he's enjoying this. Look at this.
People want to invest in
Who's
those
that?
And that's the right thing.
How much
for
will it
British
cost, and
industry.
who's going to pay?
It'll be great value for the taxpayer
The thing is,
and the country.
if you're in opposition, if you're a protest party, you can just say what you like. People said Jeremy Corbyn used to do that, but grown-up politicians who want to be in government have to have costed proposals and say where the money will come from.
What voters want is successful business people who come into politics, right, who get stuff done, who audit things, who tell the truth about the failure of finances at national and at council level, and then say consistently, these are the things we need to invest in, these are the things we need to protect, and British Steel is one of those great strategic national assets that we've got to invest in and grow on a 20 to 30...
But how much is it going to cost, mate?
Nationalisation, which you can't tell us the sum of, how much it's going to cost and who's going to pay.
Time and a place, Ed. Patience is a virtue. Invite me back on in a couple of months' time.
The vote's tomorrow.
We're voting on council issues tomorrow, and we're going to save money in council.
You said it was about immigration. That's not on the ballot tomorrow.
That's what we're hearing.
You just changed the topic.
People are so cross with the failures of this government. We've had 10,000 people have illegally entered the country this year alone. I think it's up over 30%.
That's a national issue.
But interestingly, that's what we're hearing on the doors. People are not talking on the doors to us about bins, about potholes. They are fuming about the lies of the main two parties, about stopping the boats, about controlling legal immigration. They know that Reform UK is robust and strong on these issues. We know what will make British people better off. We know what will make the economy better off and grow the economy. And isn't it exciting? People have got another choice.
OK, so is this about a national campaign on immigration, or is this on local issues
It's across
for reform?
the piece. If people want change, then they've got to vote for it, whether it's in the local elections. There's also a by-election.
I just wanted to point out that you wouldn't answer Ed's question because you said that was a national issue and we're facing local elections.
I said because we're working on a really good...
You said your expert advisor hasn't told you the answer yet.
That's not what I said at all, Ed.
You did?
Go back and look at the tape. Right, we're working on a
You
great
said you've got an expert advisor. And when he tells you the cost, you'll tell us?
And on the Runcorn and Helsby by-election, isn't it interesting? That is the equivalent of Hackney South, and we are neck and neck with Labour.
Oh, Hackney South.
Winning Hackney South. That is the scale of the potential shock and change that we're talking about. If we win Runcorn, it's a huge mountain to climb. But that is what is going on in British politics. The Labour government have utterly failed the British people. To think that they might lose their 60 safest
Richard,
seat
I think it's really interesting. A year ago, Labour was elected saying we are for change because the other lot have failed. I mean, I have to say,
they haven't changed anything.
They sounded just like you. And then the question is, when you actually get into government, what do you do and what are your policies?
That's actually suggesting that I sound like Keir Starmer is actually the biggest insult.
You exactly did.
Because we know exactly what we're doing and we're consistent. Unlike Keir Starmer, who 1 month thinks that a woman can have a penis and the next month says he's grateful for the clarity from the Supreme Court telling the biological sex of a woman.
The test of being in government is not saying the others have failed and we're for change, is whether you can answer the difficult questions with costed policies which will deliver for the British people.
And I tell you what,
that's what you're going to have to deliver in the next few years.
And that's
costed policies.
And that's why we're in this game, because we're going to give the British choice a clear choice. Do you want successful people who've been around the block, done stuff, made things happen, who can just tell it as it is?
So you'll come back on our programme and actually give us some costed policies when you know the answers from the experts.
I love your invitations to come on your programme, and of course, whenever you're ready, we will come forward. That's what is the right thing for the British people. Save British Steel.
Most looking forward to it.
Great.
Thank you very much. Richard Tice, Deputy Leader, Reform UK.
Well, he's got a point. Bring your numbers with you. If you're going to buy National Steel, you've got to let people know how much it's going to cost. I mean, it's not really about the actual number, but it's people want to see it in comparison to something else. Like, let's say, for example, it's going to be like 500 million or $1 billion. People are like, well, you know, that could be extra police on the street. So, and that's going to be a hard question to get out of. Right, see what else is happening with reform. I want to hear Nigel talk. Benedog to open up local pact. I want to see the polls.
To show you behind the scenes and also to explain what tonight is all about. First of all, I must apologise that we are running slightly late, and that is because we have enormous queues around the building as people are packing in to see the next government in. Here we are at the Royal Oak.
Oh, God, this is cringe. What else we got?
Because we've got a brand new poll to bring you tonight on the Politics Hub, just breaking the last few moments. And of course, look, don't pay too much attention to just one poll.
I'm trying to make kind of like a trading card to make it easy to to see like the different qualities of the different political candidates. It'd be good to like kind of make little trading cards so I can flip them on screen and just remind myself how I feel about these people. I'm trying to think of some good like power, like some specific titles I can put here, like out of 10, for example. I'm not saying Nigel Farage is very charismatic, but these are all kind of things I can go with. What would a political party have? Because I like the idea of having a list of things. You want aesthetics, don't you? Really? Like, what's another word for aesthetics? One second.
As the details, what's going on?
So, the opinion poll that we've got is one that's absolutely guaranteed to drive the conversation. Small changes underlie it, but that doesn't mean it won't be big news. Let me take you through the latest YouGov Sky News exclusive poll, because what it does, Sophie, is it puts Reform UK in the lead.
Oh, that's quite interesting. So, this is the voting intention. This is the for the council seats of the 23 different boroughs. I think it's boroughs or the councils. And it'll be interesting if Labour do have do start losing seats, especially Liberal Democrats. The Liberal Democrats have a few seats as well, and there's a lot of independents. So it'd be nice to see how this goes in the next few days. People see, well, even on Sky TV, some of the comments just listed that people are still, people are unimpressed with Labour. I mean, it won't take long before they'll start revolting, because Labour doesn't particularly stand for anybody at the moment.
Good evening and welcome to a special debate ahead of the local elections on Thursday. We're fed up with tax, housing, the cost of living and public services, and don't really trust anyone to fix it. That's the finding of our exclusive poll tonight. It sounds the alarm for all the main parties. 9 months after the general election landslide, we can see just how loveless it was. In the areas voting this week, Labour has crashed to 18%. But it's the Tories who have the most to lose, because they hold most of the seats.
Yes, this could be an absolute crushing defeat again for the Conservative parties.
Reform UK. However, while 26% say they'd vote for reform, there's little sign voters believe the party actually has the answers. In fact, when you ask people who does, the biggest response by far is none of the above. So tonight, our audience put Labour, the Tories, Lib Dems, Greens and Reform on the spot on the issues they care about. Well, joining us here in Hull are representatives of the 5 main political parties in England. Steve Reed from Labour, who is Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. From the Conservatives, Kevin Hollinrake, the Shadow Cabinet Member for Housing, Communities and Local Government. Daisy Cooper is the Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrats and their Treasury spokesperson. From the Reform Party, Alex Wilson, who's a member of the London Assembly, and the co-leader of the Green Party of England and Wales, Adrian Ramsey, is here as well. So there's a huge amount to debate, but let's start with local government services and local taxes. And
will that work?
To a question from a member of our audience, Ken Patterson. Ken, where are you?
Come on, Kenneth, what have you got for us?
Good evening, all.
Hello.
We pay more for our council taxes and get a poorer service. National and local services have both been heavily degraded over the past few years. I have a 7-year-old son who has special needs and will be increasingly reliant on social services to help with his care. How do the panel propose to go about...
Hey, how you doing? Bogra Banik Selik. Sorry if I spelt your name wrong. Hope you're having a nice day.
Yeah, well, of course, you talk about council tax, and council tax went up every single year under the previous Conservative government, including when Kemi Badenoch, their current leader, was the Minister
thank you,
for Local
Han.
Government. And yet,
I'm just doing I've had a great day, thank you. This is my first stream I've ever done for politics, so you're the first ever chatter I've ever had. So welcome to my little political channel where I try and do friendly analysis of politics and listen to everyone's opinions of what they have to say and try to make a healthy atmosphere for discussion. And my day was fine. It's about 26 degrees here in the UK, so how's your day been? Let's go! Well, thanks for stopping by. And on the left-hand side, I'm making... Right, bear with me here. I'm making trading cards to help me remember statistics that I've put together for different political candidates. So I'm doing Nigel today, and then I'm going to start doing more. I'm just trying to think of some really good, what they're called, like traits to add. So that's what's happening on the left hand of the screen.
That looks after the taxpayer too. That's why Labour councils would charge you less council tax than Conservatives.
I've not seen the Turkish protests. Have you seen Turkish protests? I guess is it in what actually inside of Turkey? What's this in regards to? I mean, it's not to do with being on the border with India, is it? Yeah, send it. We can have a look after this if you like. Yeah, pop it in the chat. And we can have a little gander. You can tell me your thoughts on it if you like. Let me know what you think was causing it, and I'm happy to transition over. I need to think a little bit more about what I'm going to put in my trading cards, but I'm happy to discuss your topic if you like. Let me have these guys murmuring in the background, just in case, because I've got other people watching on other channels.
The support you need for your son. It must be a very worrying time for you and your family. We are seeing rising incidence of children needing special educational needs.
Oh, right. I've got the BBC here.
140%.
So we got So we've got protesters return to Istanbul streets for a huge rally. Hundreds of thousands of pro-democracy demonstrators have returned to the streets of Istanbul, Turkey, to show support for the city's jailed mayor. When's this? It's 29th. I beg your pardon. This was yesterday. He denies the charges and says his arrest was politically motivated. I do know about this. Saturday's crowd was so large they spilled from the site of the protest into the neighbouring park. The chairman, Imamoglu Republicans People's Party, the CHP, addressed demonstrators reading out a letter from the jailed politician who's being held in solitary confinement. His wife, Dilek, was also in the protest and told the crowds, "We need to keep fighting and fighting." Protesters waved Turkey's red and white flags and chanted, rights, laws and justice. Imamoglu has served as Istanbul's mayor since 2019 and won with a resounding victory in the mayor election. I've got a question here from XNV. Know any Brits going to seek political asylum in the US? I don't think so. I mean, there's a lot of people in the Conservative Party, a lot of YouTubers who make jokes about wanting the US to kind of commandeer or take over Great Britain because of their favorability towards Trump. So I find that amusing. To be honest, I don't know. I don't think we can get away with being in political asylum in the US because I don't think we're being persecuted enough by our overlords. But it's a nice idea. I wouldn't mind having a green card. I tell you what, I've been to Miami. I've been to New York. If New York just brings the price of alcohol down, I'll be there. You've had an English version of it. Oh yes, being arrested for memes is certainly oppression. If you're getting arrested Marines and getting what they say a stern talking to is definitely against what should be at least our Magna Carta or Constitution. That's certainly not how you run a country, and that's been done under Labour and the Tories. So I can't even pick a fight with either of them. They both absolutely made a total mess of that, and that's so expanded. It's definitely all one-sided as well. You try and, if you have a political or a belief against something else which is against the cultural hegemony, then it definitely goes one way. Hence why we do call two-tier care for that exact reason. Yes, that is worrying, but I'm hoping it's going to pass. I think this is just echoes from the last 14 years of just ridiculous leftist policies that we've had sneaking into both our institutions and our government, and I think they're just tremors as the thing's calming down. So another thing, that a lot of the memes and a lot of things said online are, some of them do cross the line to like inciting hate, which I think you can't incite hate in some of our laws, but those laws, the hate speech laws, are very I could pull them up if you like. It can be very interpreted to suit one direction, if you know what I mean. I'm not going to lie, I want someone to receive a political meme assignment for the memes. I'm not going to lie, I want someone to receive political asylum from the memes. Receive meme political assignment. It could be, yeah, you're right. I mean, that could be Tommy Robinson could probably go over there and claim political assignment. That'd be great. Didn't he try and do that? Didn't Tommy Robinson try to claim political assignment? Oh, sorry, my spelling. I've typed too fast. Didn't he? Sorry, my spelling. Hang on. Here we go. Hang on. British far-right activist team to approach Republican Ted Cruz official. I think this is 4 years old, okay, but I think he did. Anti-immigration activist Tommy Robinson asked wealthy American backers to help him claim asylum in the UK. There you go. So if you want to create a meme, you can start with Tommy Robinson. How about that? Sorry, Han. I got carried away with that. I was just looking at the Turkish process. What do you think of the mayor? Do you think he's being unjustly vindicated? I mean, Turkish politics isn't my forte, but I'm always interested to have a look and see what other people think about it. Let's look at the Turkish protests. Turkish protests.
They are the largest anti-government protests in Turkey for many years, revealing the disquiet of many with a leader who's been at the head of government for more than 2 decades. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is trying to keep a lid on the demonstrations, with thousands of people gathering again in Istanbul tonight, following the arrest of the city's mayor last week. Ekrem İmamoğlu, a vocal opponent of the
there we go. I'll
president,
try and
was
say that
taken
again
into
so I don't
custody
be
on
insulting.
corruption charges, and since then, more than 1,000.
Hans says, I was among the students who were arrested during those protests, and although they were exercising their constitutional rights, they were intervened illegally with the police overstepping their mark. And good for you, right? I commend anyone who takes to the streets and protests. I mean, I don't really know how heavy-handed your political system is when it comes to crossing the your free speech laws, but I commend anyone who takes to the streets and fights for what they believe in. I've done it a few times, and I commend you to do it. Just don't overcross the line, because the media has a very cunning way of singling out troublemakers, even though they haven't been troublemakers, and spinning the motive. But well done for doing that.
Among them, left-wing politicians, lawyers, and journalists in pre-dawn raids. One opposition leader says Turkey is at a crossroads between democracy and authoritarian rule.
Are you for democracy, or are you for authoritarianism? I'm pretty sure you're not authoritarianism.
Istanbul tonight.
Especially for a student. I mean, not many students are in favour of authoritarianism.
One more night of defying a government ban on demonstrations. There's been nothing like this here for over a decade. And the chant tonight, President Ekrem. Supporters of the city's jailed mayor demanding his release. And
I'm just writing some notes over here.
To be Turkey's next leader.
Now, legally, I don't seem to have committed any crime. The MP... Oh, I was just about to write down phonetically how to say his name. İmamoğlu's party provided us with a lawyer, but many of us are still under arrest. That is what a mayor should be doing, especially standing up for his beliefs and standing up for his citizens. That's very commendable. I can't believe your party was a lawyer.
To avoid violence and confrontation with the security forces.
And many of your
colleagues
are under arrest. That's sad, but usually a hostile entity won't keep people under a political arrest. That never looks good when you're trying to win favour of your societies.
Tomorrow morning they will take me from my...
I got a question from XNV. Seeing a shift away from Zionist domination, given the BBC's past behaviour, I didn't expect the new Louis Theroux documentary to be so damning. Oh, Louis Theroux's got a new documentary. Seeing a shift away from Zionist domination? Seeking a shift away... Are you asking me a question? Seeing a shift away from Zionist domination? From what? Are you talking about the BBC having Zionist influences? I'm just going to check that Louis Theroux documentary. Spelling fail. Got a pen in my hand. Is it this one? Louis Theroux praised for TV return to a masterpiece documentary.
Is it this way to Stormzy?
Oh, he's going inside the BBC.
Yeah, me too.
Louis?
Well, I didn't mean the first one.
As if Louis Theroux was in Donnet. I was so excited.
Dame Judi Dench.
I'm going to sound really Oprah Winfrey now.
That's cool.
Interviewer revisits Palestine West Bank 14 years after his documentary Ultra Zionist. I remember watching that one.
Conscious of wanting to move forward. Like, the work isn't done.
Anyway, let's not get carried away. Let's carry on with the Turkish protests just for a bit, because Han was here first. So what was now President Erdogan, I understand, but it'd be interesting to see more information about the mayor. Ekrem İmamoğlu, sorry if I said that wrong, is a Turkish politician and businessman who serves as the 32nd mayor of Istanbul since 2019. He is currently suspended from office temporarily. He is a Republican People's Party candidate for the next Turkish presidential election. I want to see what his charge is. Istanbul's mayor and president. Oh, for Turkish on suspicion of corruption, extortion, bribery, money laundering, and supporting terrorism. And when he first, Han says, when he first won the Istanbul municipal election, they did not accept the election and held another new election, and so he won twice. Well, good for them for coming out in force. Who's Tayyip? Who were they charging? Tayyip. Oh, it's his it's Erdogan's middle name. Ah, gotcha. XNV, I was referring to the settlers. The BBC has been running interference while the UK helps kill guards and children. Is that what Louis Theroux's documentary is about? See, with the guards and thing, I'm not going to do it today, but I'm happy to talk about it for a bit. But let's just finish off Hans' question. Are you a Gazan yourself? Are you from Palestine? Whoops. And where was I here? Oh, is that tear gas?
Başlı başına hukuksuzluktan ibaret, sürecin tamamı hukuksuz ve haksız. Recep Tayyip Erdoğan'ın koltuk sevdası.
He goes to visit the West Bank and talks to both Palestinians and Zionists. I like that. You know what? I'm going to do that on Thursday. I'm going to do a stream tomorrow, and I'm going to do the Louis Theroux one because I'll be really interesting to see what that says.
Bugün burada olmamızın tek nedeni senelerdir bizi umutsuzluğa düşüren
It's called The Settlers.
bir ses çıkarabilmektir özünde. Bize siyasetle yıllar boyunca birbirimize düşüren ve bizi birbirimize saldırtan bu düzene karşı bir kere olsun beraber olabilmek için biz buradayız. Biz birlikte mücadele etmek istiyoruz.
You know, I'll save the clips for tomorrow.
ihtiyacımız yok. Bizim istediğimiz tek şey hep beraber haklarımızı, özgürlüklerimizi kazanmaktır.
I guess if he goes to the West Bank, he's speaking to was it called the radical religious Zionists? So the ones that are settling in I can't remember the towns again. Let me get the towns up. The West Bank settlements. I mean, this conflict is just keeps going on, doesn't it? It just doesn't get any better. Han says, and Imamoglu is not a terrorist. It's been conferred by the courts, and he has no connection with terrorism. You know, I pretty much agree with you, Han. It seems like when they go after people like this, it usually follows the same pattern. Now, the biggest issue is Erdogan gonna offer clements to the whole situation? Because now, if he overturns those charges, if he has any hand against it, he's gonna make him look weak. So this could get worse before he gets better. Yeah, they'll just keep doing it. I mean, since he's the mayor and you have a president, I mean, does Ekrem İmamoğlu have any ambition to go against Erdogan in like your political sphere? I don't actually know, but I can imagine if he's trying to quell him as a mayor, he might show interest of actually going against him. Oh, hang on. In short, when Erdogan realized that he would lose, he chose to be put in jail. So he was a political candidate, right? Oh, right, so from the Republic People's Party, yeah. Gotcha. I read that earlier and it didn't set into my brain.
I do hope so.
Were you always funny?
It was always odd.
I say, share this trauma with this community.
Can I ask you about dating?
Do you know what it is? I'm all out of ideas, Louis, if I'm honest.
I try not to think about
Who
it
does
too much
not
because
love
it
Louis
puts me in
Theroux?
a sense of stress and anxiety.
Ataturk. Do you know Ataturk? That rings a bell. Let me just put it in my other. Let me see if I can poke my brain. Remember, you're talking about a part of the world which I'm not too familiar with politically, but I'm happy to hear you. Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, the president of the newly formed Turkish Republic. Ataturk initiated a rigorous program of political, economic, and cultural reforms with the aims. Oh, hang on. The president of the newly formed Turkish Republic, Ataturk, initiated a rigorous program of political, economic, and cultural reforms with the ultimate aim of building a republican and secular nation state. Good, I approve of that. His primary education, education free and compulsory up to thousands of new schools across the country. Now, what's his party? The Republic of Turkey. Oh, right. So he is the founder of the party, and Imamoglu is what his running party man is, like his associate in that. Good. To us, when people say saving a country for religion, I prefer a country moving towards secular, more of a secular mantra. But that's big leap, especially for especially countries like Turkey and other countries around that area. I think it's such an important statement and a step in the right direction. I'm just reading into Ataturk at the moment while Louis Theroux's playing on the right. Oh, we've got. I've only just recently started using Twitter, but I'm happy to check this out.
Seçme ve seçilme hakkımızın gasp edilmesi, irademizin protek altına alınmaya çalışılması, iktidarın kendisine rakip gördüğü...
Just a second. Full documentary Louis Through the Settlers. Oh, nice one. You know what? I will have to watch that. I can't watch it tonight, but I will watch it tomorrow. If you guys want to come and join in, I start at about 6:30, and I'm welcome to talk with you through this XNV. Actually, let me finish watching this first, because I want to see where this goes.
This is going to be interesting.
That didn't seem to make any sense. Oh, that didn't seem... let me through Settlers. I don't want someone else's video. I just want like a... these are other people's content. I don't really want to start clicking on that. Oh well, we'll save it for tomorrow. Louis Through Settlers. There you go.
Demokrasi kurallarını hiçe sayarak, hukuku hiçe sayarak ekart etmesinin bir sonucudur bu. Bizler de oyumuza...
And the protests with the cancellations on a university degree. So where do you think this is going to go, Han? This is your country. You have a better insider knowledge than this. Do you think the protests are actually going to be able to do anything? And do you think Erdogan's going to be on the back foot? How do you think this is going to play out? I was actually doing British politics, so I'm going to have to go back to what I was doing originally, because that's the title of my stream. So I will have to go back, but I have to talk with you in the chat about it. What was I watching before? Oh, Jesus. Ah, Jesus. It's all gone off the rails. How do I get my history back? There it is, history.
As we've been discussing, Thursday is election day for many parts of England.
Nope.
23 of 317 local authorities...
Nothing will happen to Erdogan, but these protests, but I think he is aware of the will of the people. You're right. Most revolutions against large powers start with the younger generation. It usually starts with a revolution, because then you can see how, when it puts your political leader on the back foot, it's a great way to highlight that character of that leader, and it usually, hopefully, leads to a change in attitudes, and sometimes a revolution, or at least a revolution against a kind of an authoritarian dictator. So anyway, good luck to Turkey with that. He himself is aware that he will not be able to win the next election. Yeah, sounds like the thrashings around of a dying shark, doesn't it? What we're doing.
40% increase since 2015.
Now back to my boring British politics, but feel free to talk feel free to talk to you in the chat.
We put an extra £11 billion, £10.7 billion in to try and help. The most important
He's
thing,
also
of course,
afraid.
I quite understand your point.
That's that bit from Jurassic Park. No, it's the bit from.
Taxes are going higher because there are huge demands on the system, and that's why you need local authorities that are run well. And that's what you get from Conservative councils.
Starship Troopers, where they find out the brain bug's afraid.
5 times as many roads, or the length of roads, than any other party. 3.
XMV, I mentioned it to explain why I'm curious about the political shift in the UK, but I do think it's helpful for the uninitiated. Okay, Zionists are beginning to panic about the loss of media control. Well, the thing is, Israel is a democracy, so you have both voices which are pro and against the government in Israel. So it's not all just one mouth. I can understand there is like some influence there, but I don't think it's as radical as you're making it out to be, because I do understand like a lot of the atrocities that are committed by the IDF have come from within Israel themselves. And now the political shift in the UK, to be honest, from the media point of view, it's not on the minds of the majority of the people in the UK about the Israel-Palestine war. It's more of a fringe circuit of people who are interested in that topic. Main political parties, especially in these local elections, aren't really talking about it. And even the BBC has seemed to have taken like kind of a back foot on talking about it, because you can go into the BBC now, and I'll show. See, there isn't really a lot, and it's been for a while now. You've got like Trump talking about the bloody Canadians. That's pretty been put on the back foot. But you do have the Israel-Gaza war here, but I don't think it's really been chomped about. It's not really a democracy, but true, there is anti-Zionist Israelis, for example. Yeah, there is. I mean, anti-Zionist Israel. Yeah, it depends how you use the word anti-Zionist, because Zionism just means belief in a home state. It doesn't really support a government, and it doesn't support expansion. So there's many different terminologies of Zionism. I understand the why you're using it. Zionism means the belief of a homeland for the Jewish people, and it's not everyone would agree it's for the expansion or the eradication of another country. The way I use the word is just specifically for the Jews to have a place to live, as being Israel for the time being, if you know what I mean. Even for the time being, I reaffirm that Israel, I guess, is the homeland. Just remember, when it comes to my channel, I try and keep a neutral opinion on a lot of this, because I did a political compass test, right? And I'm pretty, when it comes to political leanings, I pretty much drop myself right in the center, as you can see here. I'm on the ambivalent right on this one, which is just right of center, then just left of center on this one. So I'm pretty central when it comes to these things. So I don't have really a harsh stance on many issues, so I think it might be a bit boring. But at least I can speak honestly about it without having any sort of like innate biases to sway my opinions. All right, sorry, Abraham, I just missed your message. Beg your pardon. Right, where was I?
3 times less likely to suffer from fly tipping. The services you get down the road, I don't know what particular area you're in, but...
oh, and that was my definition of genocide. I was having this chat the other day with somebody, and we were just going through how we talk about different terminologies.
When you cast your vote on Thursday, you've got to make sure you vote for the best possible councillor and the best possible council that's going to give you that support. And one of the things we wanted to do, if we had won the last election, was to bring forward a national system in terms of special educational needs to try and solve those kind of problems for your son.
Daisy Cooper.
Yeah. Look, time and again, I meet with families who feel like they are hitting their heads against a brick wall trying to get special educational needs services that their children need. And often their lives are thrown into complete disarray because they are picking up the pieces of a broken social care system. And I know just how infuriating it is when you're desperate to get help for a loved one and you just can't access it. In both cases, we Liberal Democrats have said that you can invest to save.
There are anti-Zionist Jews who want to keep living there in peace. The whole "it's just believing Israel should exist" is semantic activism. There are anti-Zionist Jews. Anti-Zionist Jews. Yeah, you do have. Yeah, you do have some anti-Zionist Jews. You can actually have anti-Zionist Jews who are actually quite orthodox as well, because the homeland, from what I understand, they believe the homeland should be given to the Jews by God and not by the British Empire. The whole "it's just believing Israel should exist" is semantic activism. Do you want to explain that a little bit more? Because I believe Israel should exist, but I don't agree with the government or expansion. So if that's what you mean by pro or anti-Zionist, you have to elaborate a bit on that. And I'm sure you can see where I'm coming from. I'm sure there's nothing unfair about that remark.
Social care, we can actually alleviate the costs on the NHS. And when it comes to special educational needs, if we provide that training up front, if we give more support and funding to schools, we can then stop this perverse and ridiculous situation where parents are left to go to court to spend millions of pounds on tribunals just to get the support that their children so desperately need. So there are ways of improving these services. We have those plans, and we really hope the Labour government listen to what we're saying and take them up.
OK, the question was much broader than just special educational needs. Alex Wilson.
Yes, very good question. These are local elections. They are about local services that are being delivered in local communities up and down the country. And we are facing a situation where, as with national government, local government is broken. And a big part of that is that there is too much waste, there is too much debt, and these councils are servicing huge volumes of debt. The councils that are up for election on Thursday, in aggregate, owe about £12 billion, and the interest alone on that is costing 1.3 million every day. So the first thing is that we need to get back on control of the finances. We need to audit these councils properly. We need a fresh look. We need new councillors who will take their experience from outside of politics.
Do you mean cuts?
Can you promise that you're not going to cut SEND services?
Can
you promise that you will not cut SEND services come Thursday? If reform on any council at all, can you promise you will not cut social care or SEND services?
I can't promise what any new council administration will do.
Wow.
Because that is up,
so
for
you cannot
those who are going to be elected on Thursday.
You cannot promise you're not going to cut SEND services.
What I can promise is that the mindset that new councillors will come in, will look at things very carefully, very, very closely, and we need to get the finances right. We need to stop the bleeding before we can treat the patient. This is what local government say, it's broken, it is fixing.
Yeah, but Daisy, can you make that promise?
In my local area, what I can tell you is that we have a plan.
Can you make the promise you asked him to make?
Lots of Liberal Democrat-run councillors are looking at SEND services, and they're looking at the contracts that have been put out time and time again. We will do everything in our power to protect SEND services, but all we hear from Reform is they think these are made up. They think that it's made up conditions. We take SEND seriously, and we are fighting tooth and nail in Parliament and in county halls around the country.
Adrian Ramsey.
Well, I don't think anyone knows what Reform councillors would do, because the reality is they have no track record at any level of...
Yeah, that's the point. It's so easy to dig in on Reform at the moment because they have no track record, but you've got to have answers. You've got to... And, they're trying to win the kind of the overall opinion rather than any sort of diving into specific numbers and figures, which makes sense because they have no history. They're the new guys on the scene, and it's so easy to tear into new guys on the scene.
Government, and people are looking at parties that do have that track record, as a record number of Green councillors around the country do. But the story that you shared with us is all too common, and I had a constituent come to me, a common story recently, where her daughter had got an education, health and care plan, but had not been given access to the support she needed, to the right sort of placement in school, and had been out of school for a whole year. And that's just a totally unacceptable situation. The fact is that whether it's special educational needs, whether it's social care, whether it's nationally provided services like the NHS, we are seeing our public services run down because the last government and now this one have not been willing to put the money in. They've been starving local councils of the investment that's needed and presenting it like there's no option. But we could ask the very richest in society, the multimillionaires, the billionaires, to pay a bit more in tax so we can invest in the services that we all need.
Steve Reed, it's a fair point. I mean, over and over again, you hear people
He wears a
say,
suit.
we thought Labour would be different.
Politeness.
Well, Labour's just, the budget that we passed last year increased spending nationally by 3%, despite the incredible inheritance we got from the Tories with a £22 billion black hole in the public finances. And local government has had an increase of nearly 7% in their funding. That's the biggest increase that they've had for years. And we want councils to start focusing on fixing the problems that people are bothered about. Fly tipping on their streets, people are furious about. We've got more
fly tipping on the streets
in England than there are craters on the moon. We need councils to get serious about spending that money to fix the things that
Steve, why am I...
God, this is going to be quarrelling.
Labour Council's got the worst record.
Do you know which council's got the highest fly tipping in the whole country? Croydon. And it's run by the Conservative Party. It's run by the Tories.
This is just going to be annoying arguments, isn't it?
If you want to talk about fly tipping, we're going to crack down on fly
XNV,
tipping.
Zionist is a movement prior to the formation of Israel. There is a case that that's all it was. Now now what you've describing is just Israel's nationalism. The Zionist movement is distinct. The Zionist movement. I disagree. I think you can actually like pull those two apart because you can have that religious aspect of it, that hyper religiousness. I can't remember who was the original philosopher behind it, but you can have both the religious aspect, which has like the authority over the land aspect of Zionism, but you have to be able to cut up that word and to make it fair, because you can't have that kind of word as a broad term to cover all bases. You can have the expansion term like Zionism from like the text, or you can have their right to exist. So that's the way I'm using it, and you're free to use it any other way you like. Let me just read your question again. Zionism movement, the formation of Israel. There is a case that's all it was. Now that you're describing is just Israel nationalism, which is fine. The Zionist movement is distinct. Okay, so what you're saying, the Zionist movement has a specific description, like people who believe Canada should exist are generally called Canadians. We don't need a distinct word, whereas the Zionists in Canada. So what's your, let me get what I'm meaning. 1 second. Okay, so I mean, I'm using the dictionary. This is the Oxford Dictionary definition. Zionist or Zionism, a supporter of Zionism, a person who believes in the development and protection of a Jewish nation in now what is Israel. I mean, that's what I've always used, and that's how I go with it. If you have another definition, you can let me know. Yeah, I know. Yeah, kind of. It's just a national identities, but Zionism. That's just how it. I mean, I know what the word Zionism has another like an actual dictionary definition of the word Z-I-O-N, but I can't remember. Anyway, what was I doing? Watching Privileged Whitey talk about bin collections.
A mess. So we're going to make people join clean-up squads as a deterrent to those who are thinking of fly tipping, a punishment for those that have done it, and to make sure that our roads are much cleaner than they were allowed to get under the Conservative Party.
If Labour's putting enough money into local services, then why am I getting head teachers in my constituency saying that they're going to have to look at whether they might need to make redundancies?
Well, after 14 years of the Tories, Adrian, you can't fix everything overnight.
Why am I getting my local integrated care board saying they're going to need to close the walk-in centre?
Adrian, nobody believes you can fix 14 years of Tory failure overnight.
36 of the worst 50.
XMV, there's better than some definitions, since it's explicitly saying Jewish nation. Many Israelis don't want their country to be an ethno-supremacist. Okay.
Local councils
it's better than some definitions.
Are run by Labour. Just face the fact.
So what's your definition then? So how are you using it? Is your main concern that the Israeli or Zionism is the expansion of Israel, like to encompass their neighbours, or is it more of like a religious thing? How is that? What's your definition then? I'm interested to know.
Country, because fly tippers got away with it scot-free under the Conservative government.
Why
if they knew that when they were doing it, they were going to have to join clean-up squads and clean up the mess they made, they would think twice before they did
bring
fly
in
tipping.
people from who wants to talk about local services? You had your hand up on the front row in the black t-shirt.
Yeah, I've spoiled my ballot for the last few elections because I...
Oh, you hero.
That was mentioned. Just don't believe that any of your parties either can or want to do anything about it.
Need to think some better topics.
Our local community does a lot on their own. I'm part of a group called Cooperation Hull, and we don't pay a lot of attention, frankly, to local councils. We go and do things on our own. We have community savings clubs, we do cleanups, we have community food buying corporations as well. Have you got anything to motivate people to come
Can I
out?
ask you, you're not interested in the New Kids on the Block and reform?
No. I think it's a lot of bluster and headlines and clickbait, similar to the other parties, to be fair.
Okay.
No.
I mean, Daisy Cooper,
Nice
how
hair,
are
though.
you going to reach him and everyone like him?
So right around the country, we Liberal Democrats pride ourselves on being community champions because normally we are part of those groups. So I think about councillors in my area and around the country, and Liberal Democrat councillors are typically the kind of people who are working, volunteering at the food bank, who are doing the friendship groups, who are volunteering to support people who are having their meals on wheels and things like that. So we're rooted in our communities, and we can see the amazing good that volunteer groups do. But at the same time, we share those frustrations that government, whether it's local government or national government, are not always on the side of those community groups. And actually what you really want is community groups and local councils working hand in glove, and that's what you can deliver, and that's what Liberal Democrats do right around the country.
Alex,
and I hope you have a chance to see that here.
Well, for the first and possibly only time tonight, I'm going to agree with Adrian. We don't have a track record of delivering local government. But that means we don't have
I should
a
have done
track
Prime
record of
Minister's
failure.
questions.
We've
That's
had,
much
we
more
can see the old
interesting.
parties arguing, squabbling about their records, and they have all let.
Yes.
We're
Yes.
Prime Minister's questions.
Hang on, let me read that. XNV. In a modern form, I see it as an ethno-supremacist movement dominated by terrorists. I think many of the followers are victims, but I don't know any self-described Zionists who oppose the ongoing terror. Well, secular, as you said, you do have secular Zionists, so they would oppose the ongoing terrorism of the Palestinians. I understand that. Let me ask you first: would you hold would you hold like Hamas and Palestine under the same scrutiny? Would you consider like Hamas wanting a kind of almost a kind of authoritarian homogeny, even though it's not ethnicity, but it could be something to do with like I don't know the word, but could the same thing be offered to the other side as a similar example? Because you say they're terrorists, and I agree there's terrorist acts on both sides, but what you're saying could easily be flipped and offered to the alternative. Because as far as I know, Hamas do want the destruction of, they want Jerusalem back and the destruction of Israel and the destruction of Jews. So I think a lot of the utterances could be said for both parties. One of them, no, not really, not in the right direction. But you do have sectless Jews who, I mean, I just know from just listening to a few podcasts on people. But I'm happy to have a little look and get back to you if you come back. I'll add it to my notes. Yeah, got a lot of notes. I'm gonna for tomorrow's stream. I'll get. But yeah, going back to a lot of Orthodox Jews, some of them don't believe that Israel is their state of the Jewish people. So that's I can get that for you. 1 second. There you go. Oh, that's the wrong thing. 1 second. Right, there you go. I do recall this. There are a number of Haredi groups which not only oppose Zionism but also don't recognize the state of Israel. Among them are the Hasidic sect of the Shomer Inuim and the offshoots, the Toldar Aaron and the Toldar Hot. I'm going to butcher that if I try and say it. So these are the people I spoke to. So there are a few groups. So that's the ones I know about. So I hope that answers your question. To go back. Oh, hi Han, welcome back. I hope you got some tasty snacks. Let me just read what you were just saying there. It's quite interesting. Okay. It's the modern. Oh, hang on, we just did that. Can you point me to one? Hamas was built up by Israel to undermine the PLO. By Israel to undermine the PLO. This is a test to the Israeli officials. Well, I didn't know that. Hamas was built up by the PLO, but how would that benefit Israel in the long run? Hamas was built up. Oh God, there's a pinned message icon right above what you've just written, and I can't see it. No, there we go. Hamas was built up by Israel to undermine the PLO. That's the Palestinian. That's the government, right? So that's the government. That's the government side of Palestine. Can't remember their actual name. This was tested Israeli officials themselves. Let me just. Can you show me a link to that? I mean, I don't want testaments from individuals. I want an actual, like a piece of doctoral report. I mean, it might be their foundations. Let me have a little look, because I don't know. Yeah, because I thought the Hamas was well, I thought Hamas, well, like, this is what I looked, but I understand they were a charity working in Palestine originally, and then one democratic vote, but it was an outgrowth of the Muslim Brotherhood. Hamas emerged donated from the Gaza War and the Palestinian Intifada. I remember that's that war that was persecuting. There's many intifadas, wasn't there? God, this is going back to my bloody history. But you say Hezbollah is built up by the PLO, but I'm not seeing any evidence to that. If you want to send it over, but as I said, it'd be good to have, like, rather than just. There you go. So here, look, sorry, I was meant to show you this as well. Professor Avin Cohen, a former Israeli religious affairs official, publicly acknowledged that Hamas was Israel's creation. And similar statements have yet been made by Yasser Arafat. I mean, are you taking statements over, I guess, huge chunks of history? But I mean, I'm not saying you're not wrong, but it doesn't seem like that's a very. I'd take your word, or Avner Cohen's opinion on that. I mean, what was your original point? I mean, is there like something you want to nail down or ask me? Because we can go back and forward when it comes to history. I'm pretty sure your history would outrank mine any day, because I'm just using a few tools. But do you have a broader point you would like to discuss, especially when it comes to BBC? I think I made my points clear of how I feel, and I think you have to recognise that I don't think all, because of how the political system works in Israel, how it is a democracy. I don't think there's I think the expansion aspect of it can be muted by democratic opinions and voting rights. I quote from Nehada Seklar, anyone who wants to thwart the establishment of the Palestinian state has to be support bolstering Hamas and transfer. Anyone who wants to thwart the establishment of a Palestinian state has to support bolstering Hamas. Oh, well, that's a pretty good statement. Well, you put put me in my food. But I mean, how is it benefiting them now? I mean, let's say, for example, you are true, hypothetically. How is what they're doing now? I mean, did they want Hamas to invade on October the 6th, and then they plan to then take flood into Gaza and do what they're doing now? Was this like a big act for them to then retake Palestine? Oh, sure, I've got those articles. I'll pop them up. During the early 1970s, the greatest enemy of Israel was known as the Palestinian Liberation Organization. That's what the PLO is, thank you. Who was known for waging terror attacks on Israeli civilians and types all over the world. The PLO is known for being a socialist organization whose sole purpose was to eliminate the state of Israel, along with the establishment of the social state of Palestine, where the constitution would be run by secular Marxists rather than Israel. Due to the short-sightedness of the Rabin administration later beginning there, I don't really branch with the Muslim politics. Due to the short-sightedness of the Rabin administration, and later beginning there was neither. On the Intercept. Okay, let's say I'll have to read all these at my own time. I can't go on this. But as to my question, I mean, let's say, for example, you are right. What would be Netanyahu's reason for why he was bolstering Hamas? did he want a what's it called, a reason to go and invade Palestine? Is that right? Because on the surface of things, Hamas have made it very clear that they want the destruction of Israel. So do you understand like how there could be conflict there? I mean, what do you think his overall intentions were? Oh, where was my thing I was watching? 1 second. Such a boomer. Orthodox Jews. Where's that gone? Oh, that's the Louis Theroux documentary. There we go.
We now come to Prime Minister's questions. Clive Jones.
Question
As Islanders, they don't want Palestine to control any part of the region because it needs to be a Jewish nation. They don't want the Palestinians to control any part of the region because it needs to be a Jewish nation. No, my question was regarding to. I understand that part. Unless I misunderstood. You said the reason why Hamas was built up to undermine the PLO. You're taking that because Israel wanted Hamas. They're actually fueling the fire, which is Hamas, or supporting Hamas in some regards. Is that the way I'm understanding you? So you said a Palestinian state to be supporting, bolstering Hamas and transferring money to Hamas. So what was the reason why? Why would Netanyahu want Hamas to be the strength of Palestine when they seem to be a massive thorn in their side? Because it seems like their utterances, as I said earlier, from Hamas seem to coincide with what the Muslim Brotherhood would have wanted to begin with, which is like the eradication of the Jewish people. So why would Netanyahu support Hamas? And how would October the 6th benefit Netanyahu at all, apart from, I guess, a reason for war? Oops.
The UK. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to say that all UK aircraft and personnel returned safely, and I pay tribute to the professionalism and bravery of all our servicemen and servicewomen. The Defence Secretary, Mr. Speaker, is making a statement immediately after PMQs. Mr. Speaker, can I congratulate Prime Minister Mark Carney on his election in Canada? Our two countries are the closest of Commonwealth allies, partners and friends, and we will work together to deepen our economic relationship to benefit working people here in the UK. Mr. Speaker, may I also congratulate everyone across the House, including members of this House and the Press Gallery, who ran marathons in London and Manchester. In particular, the Honourable...
To thwart peace, divide and conquer. They undermine peace every time. They've even assassinated peace negotiators. In fact, that this document reality is rarely mentioned, but should be sure. I'll have a look through that. But you cannot use that same argument to the other side, right? Because I'm sure the Palestinians and Hamas have come to the table multiple times to sort of secure some sort of peace agreement, and it always seems to fall flat. From my understanding, Hamas hasn't been a fair player in this game. They seem to be more to do with conquest. But otherwise, but just to bear in mind, I'm not for either side in either of this, especially like when it comes to who I say is acting right or wrong. But that comes down to, but it's definitely heavily leans on Hamas, definitely making it incredibly difficult for any sort of peace negotiations. But I'm pretty sure since, as far as I remember, Hamas have used essentially every part of their military, every part of their budget to actually install as much fear and terror on Israel as well. I mean, have they not multiple times committed assassinations on the same? It seems like a lot of things that you're saying could be applied to either side in this. But this is off someone who's, as I said, not well informed on the situation itself. So that's why the BBC documentary sometimes shifts, normally avoid acknowledging such things. Well, the thing with the BBC is they don't, because the BBC takes a lot of its data from, and they've been accused of this before. The BBC seemed to was taking a lot of their facts and polling from Hamas and not from the UN or Israel, and they've been called on that before. So I don't think it's that as biased as you think it made it out to be. There are biases in the fact that they don't use the term genocide because it's illegal ramifications for it. But anyway, like I said, I will look at that documentary XNV, and I certainly would like to continue this conversation again. It's 8 o'clock and I do have to go. But leave us a follow. I thoroughly enjoyed chatting to you. You've got me some homework to do for next time. But I am going to have to go in about 5 minutes. So if there's anything else you guys would like to say, I'm happy to answer a few questions as I start shutting down a few windows and playing out my exit music, which is RimWorld. We'll have to do this next time. Goodbye, Nigel Farage. It's been good staring at your face for the last hour. Fortunately, when you have a full-time job, you can't stream for like 5 hours, 6 hours. Gaza is completely surrounded. This isn't some symmetrical fight. The Palestinians are subjugated. Those in the West Bank live in apartheid. One second, let me just turn this down a bit. Yeah, they are. I agree with that. They are surrounded. They're in such a difficult position now. I really think that this is a massive humanitarian disaster, which is going to consistently play out. Now, if we put the history part aside, which we were talking about earlier, and focusing on from like an outsider's like perspective on it, it feels like Hamas haven't actually helped the whole situation. I think they've been certainly throttled because of a lot of the behavior from Hamas. People call Hamas a resistance group. I refer them to as a bunch of thugs, because I think peace and flourishment could certainly happen to the people of Palestine and Gaza. But I think the reason why it's stagnating and taking so long and a lot of this chaos has actually happened is because of the incompetence of the Hamas leaders. I'm pretty sure you agree that if it was another party, that the outcome could be a lot more flourishing. But no, that's how I see it just for the time being. You know what? Actually, we'll continue this conversation next time. I've got some notes I've got to catch up on, but I do have to head off. But thank you for being a good and healthy chat and spirited discussion. I certainly respect that. I mean, I do like it keeping a level head when talking about these kind of things, because I know it can be quite an emotional hot topic. So you can forgive my ignorance on the topic. You seem much more well versed in this than I do. But I feel comfortable talking to you and sharing with my opinion as well. But until then, I'll see you guys tomorrow, and we shall continue this chat. So take care of yourselves, and to you,